Good morning, everybody. It's time. I guess I keep pretty busy, so it's a good time. I got my tripod out. I'm ready to talk to you again this morning. I just kind of have a feeling like if I just keep saying things and talking about things, it seems to reach people more than all the stuff I'm putting online for people to read. So that's what I'm doing this morning. I have a workout I do every morning. I do 20 minutes running at a time, then I do some other things, then I go to another 20 minutes, and then another 20 minutes after that. So this is what I have to say this morning. I thought about some things I would talk about before I spoke this morning. I thought I would talk about my grandfather. My grandfather, I was on the outs with my mom because my mom and dad were getting divorced. Let's see, is it any better? My mom and dad were getting divorced, and when my grandfather died, he was in the hospital. He was getting his gallbladder removed, and he died in the operation. And he had 23 grandchildren and 6 children, and his wife, and they were all in the hospital room before he got wheeled into the, or whatever they did, however they took him, before they took him into the surgery. My grandfather was, I mean, can you just imagine, you know, you're going to take out this world, and you've got all these people that, you know, just want to be there with you, you know, when you die, you know, when you're gonna go, you know. I don't think there can be. I was one of the few grandchildren that couldn't make it. I mean, it was really something. And I guess my aunt, one of my aunts, she told me, she said, you know, he talked about you, and he was very concerned about you, you know, in front of everybody, you know, because I was on the outs with my mom, and he wanted to do something about it. And this was my grandfather. My grandfather's life was a terrific success. He had this. I told you before. He had this. When my Aunt Jeannie, his last daughter, got married, he spent. They had like $2,000. They spent $2,000 on this wedding, and they had all their relatives. You know, it was like a big family. You know, when I didn't go to my grandfather's funeral, but when I went to my grandmother's funeral, it was like a big party. I mean, because what happens is all your relationships are getting together, and when you all get together, it's great. It's like a big party. It doesn't matter. There was, and I'll tell you, there was some sadness there. There was we had a very unusual send-off for my grandmother. It was one in which everybody would get up and talk about. It was kind of like a Latter-day Saint thing. Like a lot of times Latter-day Saints, they'll get together and everybody can there'll be a time when people, like in sacrament meeting, when everybody can get up and talk and give their testimony. And they all talk. There was a time during that when everybody was crying, but for the most part, it was just the happiest time you could ever have. Because when my family gets together, it's just everybody's having a great time. It's just the best thing to get everybody together, and that's what my Aunt Jeannie's wedding was like. I'll say another thing. They said it was very sad, though. There were times when nobody could be happy, except I have these cousins who their dad, he's kind of unusual. He has trouble sleeping. He never sleeps because he's afraid of dying in his sleep, and he won't talk about dying. And his 3 children, they were the only ones at this you know, in the hospital room when my grandfather looked like he might die. They were the only ones that could be cheerful. And of course, everybody's talking about dying, and they just loved it. They're just having a great time because they're not allowed to talk about dying. Anyway, but there were times when everybody was very sad, thinking about it was so wonderful. We would go to visit when we would see. We were the only family that lived far away from my grandparents. And everybody else kind of lived where they could commute and stuff like that. So if we went to visit our grandparents, what would happen is all the aunts and uncles that were free, that would come to visit. Like when we would visit them, everybody would come to visit because they wanted to see us. And it was just this great time. Just to play with all your cousins and all this stuff. I mean, it was really terrific. For me, never having any brothers, it was just all of a sudden I had all these male cousins, members of my family to meet and talk to and play with, and it was just this really awesome thing. So my grandfather was a terrific success. Now, my grandfather, when you're young, you'll find that your parents don't your parents don't always tell you the things that they've done in the past. Now, because of this surveillance thing, I've had to confess to all the mistakes I made, and you people know many of the things I've done that are foolish. My dad wouldn't let me ride a bike when I was young, because what it was when he was young, he had a bike himself. And what he would do was, he was a daredevil, and he would fly around corners, and he was sort of victimized by gangs when he was a kid, and they used to chase him around. He would tell you these stories. He would, when school would let out, he would bolt out of the door, because what it would be was all the kids would bolt out of the door. There was a gang problem even when my dad was a kid. And they would be chasing my dad because they would want to catch him and beat him up because he wouldn't join the gangs. And he kind of liked thrills. But when he got older, and a lot of times as you get older, the gangs aren't as much of a problem. But he had a bike, and he was addicted to like the thrill of being of life and death. I had a same thing going on when I was a kid. He was, and what it was he would go around corners and cut corners, even though there'd be some person coming the other way with their car. Like he'd go around blind corners, and he wouldn't let me have a bike because he was convinced that I would do the same thing. Now, I wasn't like that. I wasn't addicted to that kind of thing. And my dad, I asked him one time, I really wanted a bike because we lived far from the town. And I wanted a bike so I could bike to town and see the other kids, because we lived so far away. There weren't any kids out there. And my dad, one time I finally cornered my dad. I said, "Come on, Dad, why won't you let me have a bike?" And he told me, "Well, this is what I did when I had a bike, and I don't want you to have one." So I said, "How do you know I'm going to do that too?" And a lot of the times what happens is if you tell your kids, see, a lot of people, they don't tell you, your parents don't tell you everything that they did when they were a kid because they're afraid that you'll imitate them. Now, my dad, when he told me this story, he told me how stupid he was. How stupid it was for him to do that, and how worried he was that I would do the same thing. And I didn't do that. He eventually let me have a bike, and I wasn't like that, and I didn't get myself killed. And see, that I guess what I'm trying to say here, the lesson involved is it can be a good thing if you really repent of your sins and you're really repentant of them. It can be a great blessing for you to tell your children the stupid things that you've done. To confess your sins. You learn from your parents' mistakes a lot of times. There are people, many people, they don't tell their kids, you know, the mistakes they've made in life. It's next time, almost 10 minutes left. They don't tell their parents they don't tell their kids the mistakes they made because they're afraid they're going to do something foolish like that. Anyway, my grandfather was in the coal mines, and in those days, you could force your kids to go to work. And, you know, there were these child labor laws and stuff like that now. But it was a time when you could still get away. You could still get away. And my grandfather I'm sure he was abused in the coal mines. And the other thing is he wouldn't tell. He suffered all kinds of things, and I don't think he told his kids everything that he had been through. And there was one. I overheard one of my aunts talking about him one time, and this is what I'm getting to. They were driving, I think it was over the Brooklyn Bridge. She said this was when she was like 50 or 60 or something like that, or 70, I don't know. Anyway, no, it wasn't. It wasn't that. She wasn't that old. But anyway, they were driving over the Brooklyn Bridge, and he pointed to a certain place, you know, on the bridge where it was sort of, I don't know, there was like scaffolding or something like that. And he looked up, you know, where a person could stand up and so forth. And he pointed up there and he said, "I lived up there for 2 years." You know, and this is when she's grown up, you know, something she didn't know about him at all. And I mean, because he was a runaway. I'm talking about my grandfather here. I'm telling you, he was a terrific success. He was a runaway, and he didn't go to school. He lived on the street, and he sold newspapers. And he got away from his parents, and he loved his parents. You know, he would tell. I talked to him about his parents, and he loved them, but he ran away from home because he didn't want to work in the mines. He couldn't bear the abuse. And now I took a class in coal mining, and I learned just how bad it is in the coal mines. I've talked about that. They're crazy. I mean, some of the people, the way they react is they're just insane. It's a and I don't know whether that's what I want to get into. I would rather talk about the success of my grandfather. He was a terrific success. He sent one of his boys to college. He had 5 wonderful young women. Now, the other thing is, when you get together, when you see I talk about how people are these families, these big families, they're really tight. People wanted to be around my sisters because they were just really civil and considerate of each other and very bubbly, you know, and very cheerful, you know, to be around. That's why that's why they were the way they were, how wonderful they were, just that people wanted to be around them. Now, my sisters today, if you see them today, they're not the kind of people that will rest on their laurels. That part of their life is over. They're not young women anymore, and they're off doing different things. And my sister Amy was a terrific mother, but all her kids are grown up and moved away, and now she's doing different things and centering her life on different things. But so you may want to look at them and say, are these people really the way that he describes it? They're older now, and they're different, and they're focusing their life around different things. So they might not want to, and they probably aren't interested in having people come to them and say, "Oh, are you this person that stands for this? Are you this really wonderful person and bubbly person?" And they aren't teenagers anymore. That's an age when you're really bubbly and cheerful to start out with. But that's what they were like then. And that's how you are when you're young. You're very bubbly and cheerful. At least you try to be, and be civil and stuff. And they still have wonderful characters. Anyway, but when you get my, the other thing is, when you would get my aunts and uncles together, they all, it's like their spouses too. They're like members of the family. Their spouses are like their brothers and sisters. They really, And the other thing is when you see them get together, they all start telling their best jokes and kidding around. And they are all so funny. They all have such a terrific time. And they're really old, a lot older now. But that's what it's like when you have a family like that. And now my grandfather, he was a runaway. He was uneducated. He had a 2-story house for his children. He eventually went back to the coal mines to support his family. He supported them through the Depression. And he was politically active. He knew. Now he was a guy who didn't go to the public schools, and he was a person who could think for himself, which is really what the hallmark, that really great thing that comes out of young people. I got 4 minutes left. That don't go to public school. They can think for themselves. They can reason. They can. This poor young girl I was talking to, you know, she didn't know if she should trust me or not because I was white. You know, it's like there are people that like can listen to what a person says, and based on whether or not it's the truth or not, or makes sense, they can reason and figure out whether they're telling you the truth or not. You know, so he was a person who, I mean, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt started the war, you know, like he knew that the Japanese were going to attack Pearl Harbor, and he goaded them into it. He provoked them. He knew that from his intelligence that he got us into World War II, and we didn't need to get into it. But he knew it. He wasn't one of these kind of people that just believe everything in the mainstream, and he wasn't the kind of guy either that would shut up. You know, I mean, if something was wrong, he knew there's nothing but a lot of mafiosos in the government in New York City, and he wouldn't shut up about it. You know, if the guy in office was a bum, my grandfather would say he was a bum, and he would tell you why. You know, so he was really a terrific success, you know, and he was respected by the people, and he was self-educated. He would he would read the news and try to find out what was going on, and he would find out the truth. And he wasn't one of these people that like who, and there's all kinds of points I can tell you. One point is like, you know, people say, oh, children shouldn't be allowed to run away, or there shouldn't be these child labor laws. He was an example of somebody who, you know, lived a hard life and took responsibility upon himself to take care of himself, educate himself, and be happy. Ended up being a tremendous success. Now, there are, and like I've said, there's no, the church teaches people, you know, there's no success that can compensate for failure in the home. What a terrific success my grandfather was, my mother's side. You know, what a wonderful thing, you know, it is to have a family. All these children that are devoted to you, and it's just a wonderful thing. You know, and we all loved him. And I used to talk, all his grandkids, we all just loved him. And he used to take us, he would make time for us. He liked to, there was a yachting club, that was, I only got 43 seconds here. There was a yachting club that was nearby, and he would like to walk down there. And he would always make a point to walk us down there. Now, and he would make time for us. And it doesn't sound like a big thing, you know, to go for a walk with your grandfather, but we all loved him for it, you know. And it was like, it was just the most, we all loved him. And just for the simple fact that he would make time for us. And my dad was like that too. He realized that, I mean, when he got older, you know, he realized that he didn't spend I'm going to go over time a little bit. He didn't spend that much time with us when we were kids. He was just working, to support us. And he realized that, we appreciated that he would spend time with us. And he learned birding. And he made a point to take his grandkids birding, and make time for them. And they all loved him. They all loved my father. And so it's really, and the other thing is, like, what's the secret to people's success? Well, a lot of the times it's just like spending a little bit of time with your children and talking with them. We would go to the yacht club, and sometimes my grandfather wouldn't know what to say, and he got to see me less than any of the other kids, and there were awkward moments. And I mean, and we sometimes we'd walk all the way down there and we wouldn't say anything. And sometimes right in the middle of an awkward moment, he said, "You know, your grandmother and I love you, don't you?" I mean, it's like they're just the simple. Sometimes the things you say that you think are awkward and really stupid are the things that are the most important. And I knew he had the same kind of thing going on with his other grandkids. He would let you know that, he loved you. He would let you know that, if things weren't going well and the conversation wasn't going well, this is the point. This is the point. This is why I took you down here. So anyway, I'm a few minutes over time. And I'm going to do some other things, and I'll make another recording. God bless you guys. I love ya.